state aid, and that basically is your cost of living increase each year. With the AEA bill taking all the oxygen out of Des Moines, they didn't get it done. So we're currently, there's a couple bills out there. I know the governor proposed 2.5%. I think the Senate put a bill with no number on it. The House yesterday put out a bill at 3%. Currently, inflation is running around 3.2%. It would be nice if we got SSA to match the, cost of living inflation. Obviously, 3% gets you pretty close, but last year we got 3% when inflation was running 5 or 6%. So you're losing the battle every year when that happens. It's still more important. You'll hear some legislators say, well, getting it timely is more important than what you get. I would argue no. I'm willing to wait a little bit later. Now, obviously, we have deadlines coming up in March where we have to certify our budget. It's going to be pretty hard to certify our budget if we don't know what SSA is. So I'm hopeful, and maybe by the end of the month, if they can get SSA set, because I'll be honest, for our February 26th meeting, we're actually talking about our budget with the school board, and then things are going to start happening at our March 4th school board meeting. We'll be basing a lot of our advice to the board based on scenarios if they don't get that number locked in at some point. But I would rather wait and get the best SSA possible versus than saying, because I know what they could say is, well, we can make it timely, it's zero. And that's not going to help us. So right now, normally that is the first thing that really takes up the session educationally is SSA. It's been on the back burner, and I think this is week 5. And like I said, tomorrow's the funnel. Now, it doesn't affect bills that have financial impact, but, hopefully we get through tomorrow. A lot of the other bills, if they don't pass out of committees, they die. And then maybe we'll see us start to get some traction, because people will keep asking, well, has anything been passed yet? They haven't got to that point where they've actually got to a vote on the floor, much less get the bill to the governor.
Again, visiting with Gary DeLacy on our FYI program. Gary, you mentioned you've been out to Des Moines a couple of times. How do you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on out there on a daily basis?
Well, we're part of the Rural School Advocates of Iowa, our school district, and we have an educational lobbyist that actually is there every day. And when things tend to happen, like this week, we've watched with the funnel on Friday, we're watching the AEA bill very closely. I'm almost getting daily updates from that lobbyist, and then I am pushing them out to my school board, to the staff members and things like that, and to be ready to advocate. And I'm also a member of the School Administrators of Iowa. They have an educational lobbyist as well. The school board is a member of the Iowa Association of School Boards. They have a lobbyist. So I'm getting inundated on updates, and then I try to push them out as necessary. And like I said, what I've been seeing this week is be vigilant. Things are moving fast.
You're going to retire. You interested in being a lobbyist at all, Gary?
I'm trying to get away from human conflict, Gary.
Preschool bills up next on your list, sir.
Yeah, a positive thing. Well, currently, there's 4-year-old preschool, and it's paid at a half a day. And one of the things I think the state has noticed, and it has been a problem, there's been a few problems. A number of families in the state are not choosing to send their kids for a half a day. And I'm wondering if that's daycare issues in terms of what do I do the other half of the day when they're not in preschool. It also takes, in a lot of families, one member out of the workforce. Like, there needs to be somebody at home that half a day, or the transporting the kid, or somebody to make sure they're there. So, there is talk now, and even expanding it to 3-year-olds, but particularly 4-year-olds, about making that fully funded, and then getting the wraparound services so those students actually stay the full day. And with the idea then maybe that takes those barriers away from family, and they will get at least those 4-year-olds there. And then there's a couple bills that talk about, should we extend it down to at least 3-year-old? because right now it's not funding. So you got some kids that parents are sending them to 3-year-old tuition in, but then there are some kids that are getting nothing. And then you begin the inequity right there, that some kids know their colors, know their name, can recite their address, just those kinds of things. And you might have a kid come into kindergarten right now that can't tie their shoes, are not potty trained. I mean, you got those issues, and then you've got a 5-year-old next to them that is actually doing readers already. So it's a wide range, and how do you level the playing field, particularly with 3- and 4-year-olds?
Yeah, before we take a break for the weather, let's move on. You talked about inequity per pupil.
Yeah, and this has had very little discussion because of all the pieces we've already talked about, but this is actually a major issue for Clinton County schools. Going back to 1972, when they set the state formula, they grandfathered in districts that were actually spending more per pupil than others. So I'll just say property-rich districts that had the means were spending more on kids than property-poor districts. Well, Comanche and DeWitt are at the low end because that inequity was $175 about 8 years ago, and Art Tate made a big deal about this because Davenport was at the end of that. They've kind of $5 and $10 it each year. Last year they did nothing. So we're at a point where at $140 is the difference per student. Well, when you take that times your number of students, it does make a huge difference. So DeWitt and Comanche are at the maximum inequity of $140. Clinton's at $129 per student based on something that was decided in the early 1970s. That's about $500,000 every year because of that. We would advocate that it shouldn't matter where you live in the state. You should have the same number of dollars behind you to educate you. There's not a lot of urgency right now, but we continue to push that is not right.
Let's take a break for the weather. More with Gary DeLacy after this. Our update brought to you by Morrison Community Hospital.
Some clouds this morning giving way to some sunshine for this afternoon. It's going to be windy and cooler, too. Highs in the mid to upper 40s with a northwest wind up to 30 miles an hour. For tonight, snow showers likely as we drop to the mid-20s. A light dusting of accumulation is possible. With your Storm Track 8 forecast, I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzky.
It's like some sun trying to break through the clouds right now. Northwest winds still up around 15 to 20 miles per hour. Temperature now 38. Our update brought to you by Morrison Community Hospital. Morrison Community Hospital asks, what does it cost to miss your regular health checkups and screenings? It can cost you the chance to catch disease early when it's easiest to treat. It can cost you control over chronic health conditions and the ability to prevent health problems by keeping your immune system strong. Those are prices no one should pay. So it's time to catch up on care. Make an appointment with a primary care provider at Morrison Community Hospital and reclaim your health today. Morrison Community Hospital of Morrison, Illinois. Back with Gary DeLacy on our FYI program, still looking at the legislative issues, open enrollment deadline.
So there's a bill that's been submitted by Senator Knoyer, and I'm really pleased that she submitted it, that would reinstate the open enrollment deadline to March 1st. It was stripped a couple years ago when, I'll be honest, there was frustration that the educational savings accounts didn't get through. So at the last action of the session at midnight, they took the open enrollment deadline away, which means families can open enroll anytime. The first problem is, how do you budget? If you arbitrarily can move at any time, how do you budget for that? And that's been a struggle in the 2 years that we've went without it. And the other thing is you have some parents that are kind of playing a game. Athletics in particular, we see now that you actually have basically parents shopping even sport to sport, like I'll play my fall sport at this school, then I'll open enroll and I'm going to go to this school for the winter. And it should be about education, not about the sport, but you're seeing a lot of that. Another area that it's really showing up is truancy. So if you start really working through the process and a parent is not getting their son or daughter to school and there starts to be some legal teeth to it, there's sort of a get out of jail free card right now to say, well, I'm going to open enroll my child out. And then that sort of stops the process and so the lack of accountability in those cases is frustrating. I'm really hopeful that open enrollment deadline would get in place. The other thing is they're changing the Iowa school report card to have truancy, chronic truancy as part of the report card. Well, if they don't give the schools the tools to help encourage kids to be in school, and this continues, we really have no leverage to get kids to school.
School start date bill.
Another bill that was submitted that I am supportive of, the current, and it's been this way now for probably 8 or 9 years, August 23rd is always the first day of school, and the reason for it is the latest that the state fair could ever go is August 22nd. It's rearing its head this year because August 23rd coming up is on a Friday. So do you want to start your school on a Friday? And I'll be honest, if they don't change it, we will start on Friday because I'd rather have a day in August than a day in June. But educationally, does it make sense to start on a Friday? Absolutely not. So the one bill says the Tuesday after the state fair, which would actually then start us on August 20th. That would seem to be more sense to make it start on a Tuesday or even a Wednesday than starting on a Friday. So I'm hopeful that bill goes through. I'm being told the tourism industry is totally against it and they're pushing against it. But I do think some legislators that actually have kids in school, and particularly if they're in fall sports, it's like they're already practicing for 2 weeks. It isn't like we're going to be doing that. And schools would excuse kids to go to the state fair if they're going out anyway. But it would be nice if they would give some flexibility there.
Yeah, I can recall, covering interviews for football and visiting with Dwight Spangler. He's always talking about, we get some kids out there at the state fair right now showing their cattle.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
School safety, and we saw that incident in Perry, Iowa not long ago, a shooting in Kansas City yesterday. Of course, it wasn't school related, but school safety certainly is an issue.
And it's a top priority for our district. I think we're ahead of the curve of most school districts. Where Clinton High School, we are proactively screening every morning to try to make sure that we are keeping weapons out of the building with our Evolve system. But one of the things that's problematic is there's really not a funding stream in Iowa unless you use the general fund, which pays teachers, to actually support school security. So like paying for our school resource officers, or we even have campus security that actually walk the building and making sure that nothing suspicious is happening and maintaining safety. Right now, that all comes out of the general fund. So you're making a choice. We're probably eliminating a teacher or two to pay for this, and I don't think school districts should be having to be put in that position. So one of the things I would hope that particularly the Perry case puts it on is, how do we get an SRO in every building? How can the state help pay for that? How can there be a separate funding stream so that we don't have to make a choice, well, we need to cut a teacher in order to pay for this? That is really not a great position to be in to make that decision. Obviously, safety is really important. We would love to have a separate funding stream for that human resource component of school resource officers, campus security. I would love to move from 3 SROs to 5 for the district. I just think 3 were really thin. We're not going to be in the right spot if a potential incident happened. If we had 5, I think we'd be in a lot better position.
So, do they go from building to building then, of the 3, and you've got the 5?
They do float. But they spend the majority of their time at the middle school, the high school, and the alternative high school, but they are present at the elementaries. And I would like to see more presence, particularly at the elementaries, at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, and those kinds of things. And I'll be honest, Clinton High School and the middle school are big enough that at times you need more than one. Things happen, and it'd be nice to have access to so it may be a situation. We're just trying to create capacity to keep things safer.
You know, we do a monthly honor of school male, female, and honorees with the athletic boosters and the candlelight in. I was talking to the freshmen today, and I said, you know, by the time you graduate, all this renovation will be over with. Are you looking forward to that? And she said, yeah, it looks like it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So we got an update on Monday night, and they've, at least budget-wise and how the project is, we're 67% of the way there. So 2/3 of the way there. We outside of about 2.5 weeks in January, the weather's been great, and so there is a lot of precast and block wall going up. They are actually pouring floors. I was there last week. I do believe that, you know, whether it's early or late fall, phase 2 will be completed, and phase 2, for those that haven't been following it, is a brand new fine arts, so that'd be band, chorus, orchestra, wing, and then new CTE facilities, so auto, welding, those kinds of areas, and between them will be a new performing arts center. So I do think that will be finished up early to late fall. And then at that point, then we'll begin that third phase, which will be the demo of the front of the building and what we would call the current shops building. The back building, where the shops building is, the parking lot will extend all the way around the building. So for the first time on the south side, there will be parking all the way around, and you could actually drive around the building. And then obviously the front of the building will be the new admin center, a new cafeteria gathering space, which would actually swale into your gym. It'll be that close that it'll swale into your gym. So I think you'll have an opportunity, like you see at some of our venues now, like at between games and halftime, you would actually go out there, get your concessions, have a place to sit down, socialize. We really don't have that right now. People just walk back into the gym. It'll be more of a gathering area.
Yeah, that will be kind of nice. And, you know, will there be an open house as you did when you had that first phase done?
Yeah, I'm guessing there'll be an open house at the end of phase 2 and open up so the community can see that piece of it. And then I'm sure there'll be the final open house. Phase 3 will be the end of the project, and that'll be basically the front of that building.
Yeah, it seemed like the participation from the community was pretty good to the open house. Looked like there were a lot of people came through.
Yeah, I think people are excited to have a state-of-the-art facility, and we're able to offer some things. And even, you know, a lot of people, they like Cook Theater, but it doesn't have an orchestra pit. It doesn't have fly space. This place will have all the amenities that a student attending a school in the Quad Cities will have.
And final point today, registration for next year.
Yeah. So particularly at the high school kids are starting to register for their classes for next year. So a lot of this message are for high school parents out there. You know, there's been a major push in career and technical career pathways, and particularly if you've got a freshman, sophomore, or junior, to really make sure you're having those discussions. I know we've now working with Clinton Community College, we actually have a separate counselor now that is totally focused on the counseling of these pieces. And so, you know, areas that don't require that 4-year education. So I'll go through a few: welding, advanced manufacturing, auto, building trades, culinary, CNA. These are all areas that you can get what we call concurrent credit. That means your son or daughter, as a junior or senior, will get both high school and college credit for the same class. So they can start getting college credits for free, or you can think of the school district paying for it. And it also are pathways that probably maybe 1 year or maybe a year and a half after that high school diploma, they will get credentialed in that area and begin working instead of having to go to a 4-year school. And it's not for everybody. There will still be kids that want to go to a 4-year school. I just don't think we've had enough emphasis on students that have never seen themselves going to a 4-year school, but what's there after high school. And this would be, here are some specific pathways of what can you do after high school.
You know, that is a good point. You know, as you pointed out, you know, some students aren't going to be going on to a 4-year school. They get done with high school. What now? What do I do now?
Absolutely, and we're trying to do a lot of that career counseling now to start. We need to think about it, and you know what? It doesn't mean one of the best lessons is, let's say as a junior you do welding, and at the end of that junior year you decide that's not for me. Well, that's probably a good decision. Instead of down the road you try it, spend a lot of money, and then decide that. So even trying something out and deciding, hey, this isn't what I thought it was, is a good lesson, and it's a lesson better learned as a junior or senior in high school.
No doubt. As always, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Gary.
Thank you very much.